Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Larry Davis, CEO and founder of AgoNow. AgoNow is a master wholesaler, or sometimes referred to as a master distributor, in the highly competitive industrial distribution market. For those of you who are not familiar with the role of master distribution, they reside between the manufacturer and traditional distributor in the supply chain. They act as an inventory buffer and category optimizer for their clients. As their sophistication grows, master distributors like AgoNow are driving the digitization of the industrial channel. Now more than ever, distributors need to be able to collaborate at a digital level to remain relevant to their customer base. Larry has a long history in the distribution market, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. This episode is brought to you by HMI Performance Incentives. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've been exposed to some form of loyalty point system. What a lot of people don't understand is that these programs are not just for the big kids targeting consumers. Loyalty incentive programs are used by small to mid-sized organizations focusing on the B2B market each and every day. From service contractors to stylists, plant engineers to purchasing agents, incentive systems work. You can learn more about HMI performance incentives at www.hmiaward.com or connect with them on LinkedIn at HMI Performance Incentives. Be sure to let them know you heard about them from me, Jason Bader, on the Distribution Talk podcast. All right. Hey, Larry, thanks for coming on Distribution Talk. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason. It's really an honor to be here. I look forward to our conversation.
Well, me too. In our little conversation earlier, it seemed like our paths have crossed in a lot of different ways, different industries, different people that we've known. And so hopefully we've got a good conversation coming our way.
Yeah, I can't wait. And I love the Gordon Graham connection of the heritage where your business comes from. As I shared with you, he's somebody that really influenced me early on in my career. So such symmetry to come back to it at this point. Super excited.
Absolutely. Gordon's just, again, tried and true stuff that, people want to fancy up, replenishment and procurement, but, you just go to the Gordon Graham fundamentals, you're probably going to be doing okay.
Yeah, you're one overhead away from fixing your problem.
Absolutely. Well, Larry, if you wouldn't mind, could you just give us a little backstory, a little history of your journey through distribution and up to the present?
It's funny. I hadn't really connected all these dots till you and I started talking about this, but I guess in one way, shape, or form, I've been in distribution most of my life, right? High school worked for a grocery store, stocking shelves, so moving packages. Went from there to an Anheuser-Busch distributor where I drove a forklift and loaded trucks and made sure they were full for the deliveries. From there to UPS through college, moving a lot of boxes. And after college.
What a great job, though. That UPS job in college, that was the coveted job. That and Costco, when I was growing up, those were the two coveted jobs.
It's funny as you say that, but 50% plus failed out because the first thing UPS did with you the minute they got their hands on you is they stuck you in a trailer by yourself to see what you were made of. And half the people just walked off the job. It didn't matter that it was great money or any of that stuff.
Right.
It was grueling, brutal work. And, the thing that really struck me at UPS, because I got to be a supervisor through school, so I got to see the other side of it.
Yeah.
And their precision and focus on process and productivity was and still is off the charts, right? And I didn't understand it contextually back then. I just knew it was an objective to achieve. But today, watching manufacturing in particular and commercial construction and the pursuit of productivity is such a bellwether of the core of the U.S. economy. Never understood the implications of it, but man, what a great schooling, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've always been kind of a huge fan of UPS. You were kind of one side of the fence or the other. You were either a FedEx guy or a UPS guy. And I grew up as a UPS guy. That was kind of the direction we went. So,
yeah, I'm so old. FedEx was just being born when I was working and we just, next day air came out while I worked there, right? I mean, UPS next day air was a service that was born out of the FedEx competition.
Sure.
That, and I wrote a program to drive productivity on the preload shift on Excel. We were doing some cool stuff way back then.
Absolutely.
So after college, I worked for a software company for a brief period of time in the commercial construction arena. And then I went to work for a company called Miller Beauty Supply, which was a wholesaler of professional beauty supplies. And again, it's a very franchise driven business. So if you had the Matrix franchise, for example, you had that for a geography.
Yeah.
And so it was a great business, excellent margins, a lot of education, and sales, the cost was very expensive. But managing inventory was a real challenge because they had different combinations. There was tons of promotions, special relative pricing. And so this thing was chaos and the owner didn't know what to do. And that's when I found the book, Distribution Inventory Management by a guy named Gordon Graham. And we were on a Wang VS system that was just really difficult. Woo!
Oh my gosh, a Wang system. My dad had a Wang system as well. Oh, that's funny you say that.
Yeah, one of the most prophecies ever said in the business world was on Wang to say, we're a $4 billion company. What are we just going to blow away? And that's exactly
You
what
did.
happened.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, wow.
did. And you did. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, so it was interesting. So a little segue, my godfather was the salesperson that actually sold that to my dad. And I can remember this whole thing. And I do remember some of the arrogance that my godfather used to talk about in that Wang system. So that's interesting. Go ahead.
The cost of the hardware, the function. I mean, we had to pay a guy.
Yeah.
In fact, the guy I paid that was in college to go in and switch the tapes, because you had to basically overwrite the disc every weekend to get efficiency out of it.
Yeah.
That guy was our CIO at ORS and is my partner to this day. That college kid that was flipping tapes.
No kidding. Oh, that's amazing. Nice.
And so because of Gordon, we went and found NextTrend and converted the company to NextTrend and brought all that. I mean, amazing system with great, back then it was that and WD. I mean, again, Gordon had advised all these guys and they listened and it worked.
Yeah.
And so spent a lot of time there and that company sold. Actually went to work for NextTrend for a while and managed large projects for them and multiple distributorships. And out of that, I was introduced to a company called Unidare that owned NASCO in the US and had just bought a company called Oklahoma Rig and Supply.
Yeah.
And so in November of 1999, I started with the Unidare entity, which was owned out of Ireland. And that was the day so November 1st, 1999 is the day I discovered that neither company was Y2K compliant.
That's a big how do you do?
Yeah. And so spent the next 17 years or so in the industrial market at ORS NASCO, or what became ORS NASCO.
Yeah.
Just, worked with an amazing amount of talent and great people and learned so much. And you want to talk about a challenging business, day one, our working capital as a percent of sales, I think, was in the 28% range, which is just ridiculous. And EBITDA was non-existent. And, so it was a business in need of major restructuring. And so we went through a whole myriad of things. And again, in that timeline, at 9/11 happened, 2 million manufacturing jobs disappeared from the United States systemically.
Yeah.
Just amazing challenges that we got to work through as a team and learn this amazing industry, right? This massive industry that serves the core of the U.S. economy so powerfully. It was just a great place. And it's one that I've enjoyed learning a lot about and applying those skills. And so anyway, I spent, a little over 17 years, I think, at ORS. And then I partnered up with John Weborg for a little bit at Stellar. And
John's a great guy. Yeah.
John's a great guy. And he's got some amazing talent there. And Phil Knipe and Molly Lang, some really cool people, and Tim Daly, the finance guy, and Dina, just some amazing people that, and, Phil Knipe is probably one of the thought leaders in metalworking that I've ever met. I mean, and again, productivity, this is about productivity. And that's where I really got to see it firsthand again, was the application. I mean, it was make or break for customers, right? If they couldn't get to a level of productivity, they couldn't get the job. And so to see it in those terms was very powerful for me. And then for some godforsaken reason, I got called back to the master distribution space. A lot of customers, a lot of suppliers, wanted something different. And so we designed, in mid 2016, We launched
Yeah.
AgoNow and really we tried to build a digital partner that could help people do the things they couldn't and connect dots in ways that weren't being connected today. And we believed and still do that this market is in the middle of a major, major shift that's going to change the face of it dramatically. And it's going to require all of us to pivot multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to be there to help people through that, right? We want to contribute to this industry that has given so much to us. We wanted to help people make that transition. And that was a key reason we started AgoNow, along with the fact that we wanted to own our own future and
Sure.
not have that done in a boardroom somewhere.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Larry, what's the origin of the name? That's the one that, I look at the name, I'm like, okay, well, it's unique. I'm just trying to figure out what it means.
Man, I wish you wouldn't ask this because now I got to tell the story, and it's just a tough
Oh,
story to
okay, go
tell
ahead.
because
Yeah.
everybody always credits me with it because I'm the marketing guy, right? I'm the guy that came up through the outside.
Right.
But actually, my partner, the boring IT guy I just told you about, he's the guy that had this name, and it's Agore is Latin for market, so the origin of the name is market now, right? And
Oh, interesting.
the corollary I always used is I used to be able to be the most lazy merchant known to man, right? I could I
Okay.
could merchandise the entire abrasives category in one swipe with a flyer or a catalog,
Yeah.
and it was world class lazy, right? What maybe wasn't even priced. And in today's world, every SKU has to stand on its own 2 feet in the environment that it's in, price included,
Right.
freight included, service level included. It has to be an offer into itself that is created dynamically at that point in time. And so when we started AgoNow, it always has been and always will be a fully digital company committed to the market being what it is right now and being what the customer needs when they need it, where they need it.
Gotcha. Yeah, no resting on the historical laurels and the the merchandising world of your past there. It's got to be digital and right now. So, no, it makes sense. So, you know, I guess one of the things that a lot of people don't really understand, where does that master distributor provide value, and what is two step, or actually really how was it born? I mean, those are some questions that I've had from people recently.
I think master distribution was born out of market inefficiencies, right? It as they normally are. And so manufacturers, and again, one of the deepest origins in our world is in the welding and gas distribution world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those manufacturers had trouble getting access to these thousands of distributors that they had back then. And so they started finding the master distributor, and there three of them popped up, three core ones anywhere. There was ancillary ones, but three main ones.
Mm-hmm.
OKI, Bearing Company, and NASCO. And there was two NASCOs back then, by the way, so there was four.
Yeah.
And the welding distributors really embraced that because, again, from a core standpoint, gas is their really core business.
That's where they make their money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
follow filler
absolutely.
metals and the machines and the prescription of those capabilities, and then all those consumables come around it. So
Totally.
an efficient
Yeah.
next day supply chain that delivered to my branch was very advantageous, and they're smart business people, and they used it.
Yeah.
And they built a model that a fourth of their portfolio would show up tomorrow and they didn't have to pay for it in 30 days. And so it made it
Yeah.
a really efficient relationship. And then it helped bring scale to some of those players, either through a blind group relationship or some method. It gave them more relevance by dealing with the wholesaler. And for the most part, they've grown together. Now, there's times when everybody's identity has been questioned and they're trying to figure out their place in the new world order.
Right.
And I think that's the interesting thing is where is it going and where's it going to land?
Yeah.
I think that's the real question, everybody wants to sort out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I appreciate the welding reference there because I've been hired in to work with welding supply companies, and they're like, well, yeah, we've got this whole gas thing that we really really like, and then there's this accessory thing I don't really know much about, but maybe you could help us out with that. We have it. It's challenging. It's inefficient. It's a pain. Maybe you can help us out with that. So yeah, I remember that definitely. That is not something that welding distributors really enjoy working on.
Yeah, well, they're good at it. They know what they need, right? They're excellent at
Yeah.
prescribing the solution. What they want is what everybody wants now is an easily and seamless supply chain, right? That allows them to go to market, to execute what their customers need, but not stocking 8 million SKUs and $10 million of inventory if you don't need it.
Sure.
And again, that's to me one of the big differences in today's market that is rapidly changing is the days of we're going to stock it and they will come are rapidly going away, if not gone.
Sure.
And you need collaborations with people that can tell you, here's the product I'm going to need all the time, and I need you to have it all the time. And then your partner has it all the time, right? But
right.
To say, hey, I'm going to call you on Tuesday with this massive demand and you don't have any insight to that, plan spend is becoming a bigger and bigger portion of our business in totality.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have to get better at dialing that in. It's just another form of productivity, right? It's a productivity with an asset
right.
rather than a labor item. But productivity is the name of the game here, because the biggest platforms, let's use Amazon as an example, they are an extraordinarily efficient ecosystem and they have moved into our channel. And so that should be a wake-up call to all of us that the demands on our ability to service the customer just grew exponentially. And, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for our market because it will make us be better. And I think it's a good thing for the end users that ultimately drive this, because they're going to get better service and get better productivity that makes our manufacturing and our contractors more competitive on a global landscape that's very competitive today.
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it, without that competitive pressure, then they're going to be stuck in the same old, and you're going to keep delivering and you're going to keep delivering mediocrity and you're not going to push it any further. So going back to the earlier comment about what happened with, FedEx pushing UPS to that next day and second day and things like that. Same thing here. Distributors are getting pushed because of this potential pressure. I mean, the same thing we saw back when Home Depot became, kind of a big presence. That changed the landscape of the business I grew up in, the construction supply business. And so, yeah, competitive pressures. I mean, that leads to innovation. I'm a firm believer in it.
Look, it's happened in many industries. Just look at let's go back to gas distribution.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody can say that Airgas and Praxair and Matheson and the Nexairs and the Arc3s of the world and Norcos of the world and the gas and supplies of the world haven't changed the landscape and required people to up their game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Airgas, through their very behavior, made everybody up their game and their platforms, right? Airgas is going SAP. Everybody's like, oh my goodness, I got to get digital, right? And these guys are excellent at productivity because of their nature and their DNA. But the Airgases of the Praxairs of the world drove a lot of innovation and change that helped everybody be more competitive. And so the 500 that are still standing, right, of the independents are much better than they were years ago because of that competition.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. It forces you to look at different technology and different ways of serving that organization. And really, actually, I think it drives these companies closer to that end user. Instead of just, here's what I got, what do you want? It's, what are you all doing and how can I be more of a solutions provider versus a product provider?
I couldn't agree more, right? Is understanding your customer and how you're bringing unique value to them is extraordinarily powerful. And again, I think for any of the people that compete along the whole spectrum, getting a more diversified customer base with a more diversified product consumption that is appropriate, right? Because again, productivity pushes on that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to sell more items, but what items, right? And how do you make that efficient? So the complexity of today's world requires category management and assortment management in ways that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. So it drives a lot of improvements, to say the least.
And you definitely don't want to be the last guy with the inventory on the shelf.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. Years ago, I ran into the guy that was the head merchant for United Stationers, and he was a brilliant guy, super old school.
Yeah.
Loved him because he was just matter of fact, but the old saying is you can be a contrarian as long as you're always right. Well, he was always right. So he could be. And we were in a meeting one time and they were low on inventory. They were the last people to have it. And everybody's like, oh, you got to discount that and cut the price. And he's like, absolutely not. Raise the price by 18% and syndicate it out. And we were all like, what is he doing? And he was 100% right. He became the only source of supply. He didn't panic. He was a consummate professional merchant. And he said, I have the last inventory in the world. I'll sell it for a little more and take great care of people and move on. And that's exactly what he did.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And Really looking at the model of the master distributor, I mean, you all hold the things that your clients, your customer base probably shouldn't hold. That's really the magic there is for, the customers that you serve.
Yeah, ironically, to me in the future, our business will look materially different than it does today. And we've done a good, again, one of the things of master distribution of the future is we have to be the master merchant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be the one that helps people understand what to stock and needs to be in stock and what can be achieved through an efficient supply chain in a reasonable amount of time. And so that's a big role that we play in terms of merchandising and how they look at what they're going to stock and move. I think I said this to you the other day, to me, whoever holds the inventory is probably the biggest sucker in the room.
You did say that. I just was hoping that I didn't have to say it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they shoulder a huge amount of risk. And again, this
Yes.
comes back to the plan versus unplanned spend. If you have the market knowledge, you can stock to the strength of the consumption.
Yes.
And so that's something we're getting better and better at. And I said this on a different podcast, the intentionality of the assortment,
Yes.
right? And making sure that you're selling to where the manufacturer's strength is and what they need to sell and what they're really good at. And we found great success in balancing our mix because of this, because it's helped us stock the right items, deliver the right data that supports any kind of transaction, and then back that up with a stocking position. It creates the supply chain that everybody needs.
Absolutely. And I think I'm glad you mentioned the data management because data management is becoming a very big piece of that. That's becoming something that really you all can provide value there. I mean, you all, have systems, as you said, you grew up from a digitized company. That is where your core is. So, bringing that type of sophistication and that level of analysis to maybe somebody who is not as big, maybe a legacy company that's kind of passed on to generations, but they have that opportunity, I guess, to learn from you all and to really leverage what you all have worked on.
Yeah. Back from my days at ORS on, we've always said anything that we do is available to our customers. And that is true today as it's ever been. I will talk to any business owner anytime and share insights and pains that we've had. The one thing I never had at ORS was the perspective of actually being the entrepreneur, right? It's, you can say, oh, you were
Right,
the president
right.
and on the hot seat and all the, yeah, sure. But it is much different when you own the business, and the ups and downs and the challenges that brings is just unbelievable. And that perspective is something I didn't have back then that I absolutely do today. But again, I think the business is changing, and kind of where I was headed there is I think our assortment will kind of continue to shift.
Yeah,
To your point, right? We will be the stockers of, we'll always have the A's because someone will need those in a small quantity or something.
sure,
And
sure.
again, we can do fulfillment, we can be a master distributor, we can kind of be whatever you need us to be. And that agility was something that we really wanted to build into our platform.
Right.
But we want to get better at the B's, C's, and D's so that people always have a place to go get those. They can get them quickly. As long as they're relevant to the solution that they need, we want to have those and be relevant to that. So I think our SKUs will kind of tighten as we've got intentional about the assortment. And then I think they'll kind of
Hmm.
stretch back out as we collaborate with the suppliers and make sure that we have the coverage that they need to service all their different channels and partners as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's you know, that's one of the greatest value propositions, for the distributor is that they don't have to look at they don't have to stock those C's and D's. That's really it. And this was kind of going back actually to some of the old Gordon Graham stuff is really, having that hub holding those slower moving items and the spokes, being more nimble, much more fast. And I think that rather than the hub and spoke being your own money, why not have the C's and D's, be you, be the, that master distributor who can get it to people really fast. I mean, that's the other part of it.
Yeah, and we're actually having a lot of success having people outsource product categories to us, right? Where they say, hey, look, this is a category that we're developing, or it's one we've just never been strong in, but it's something important to our customers.
Right.
We're stocking all these different brands. Can you help us? And so we'll do the category management work and help them kind of synthesize their assortment.
Yeah.
And then again, we'll provide them all the data they need to do a digital transaction or otherwise. We'll do the stocking strategy and we'll make sure they're relevant. And we basically prop them up in that category. And in many cases, the order just comes to us and we ship it to the end user and make it look like it came from them.
Right. And that's what you can do. I mean, that's the thing that for so long, and I think I shared this with you before, so long, there have been people that said, well, we've got to go direct. Direct's the only way I can go to the manufacturer. And I think I shared with you that one client I had that was really upset that I think it was ORS NASCO that was in their top 5 of suppliers and he didn't know. And he got really upset about that. And it just kind of boggled my mind. And I was like, man, do you know that these guys provide pretty amazing value to you right now? You're cutting one PO versus multiple. I mean, there's a lot of advantages. So
Yeah, and I think especially if you get that digital integration piece down where you're getting all your content from them, and all you got to do is take the order. And again, as we get better at integrating digitally with our customers, syndicating our catalog to them, whether through ERP or punch outs or websites, whatever your channel is,
right.
we become even more valuable because so much of that you're not going to have in stock at that moment in time, and you can seamlessly punch it through us.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that it also, and you just alluded to that a little earlier, was that people can enter categories and they can enter into areas with a lot less risk. They don't have to make the supplier relationship where you got to sign your life away at the, and bring in the massive order, the opening order, and things like that. They can really start into a market with you all. And if it doesn't work out, it's not as bad, it's not as big a risk. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, without question. And we can help them take targeted shots, right? We don't say, hey, go sell this brand.
Yeah.
We say, hey, these items in this NAICS code is your target, right? Don't vary for now. If they ask you for something else, we can react to that. But this is the offer, right? And stay in this, and you're going to hit, singles and doubles all day long.
Yeah, I think that's really a tremendous piece of the value proposition, for this master distribution model is to, again, allow and really coach them into, some of these categories that maybe they would like to explore, but just have not been able to in the past.
Yeah, and let's just tackle this notion of being direct, right? Because it has its merits, without question. The relationship with the manufacturer is one of the sacred collaborations you can have, right? Because it brings you product knowledge and access to things that you only get as a direct player, right? So I don't want to minimize that in any way, but
sure,
you also have to step back from our industry and recognize the massive share shift that is occurring. And that's occurring for a reason, right? And it's more demographic than it is anything else, right? There are people that buy now that do not want to talk to you, and they don't want to do it the way things used to be done. They want to buy online, and they want to do it in the way that they're going to procure. And
right.
You remember the old adage, let your customer buy the way they want to. Well, that's all fun and games until they want to do it in a digital way.
A way that you can't do. Yeah. Yeah.
But for every person that says, I got to be direct, there's people that don't have any direct relationships, and they're growing at an alarming rate. And so, again, we have to continue to challenge ourselves to look at our market and understand our value proposition and what we really deliver, and use that to advance the cause. And so, to me, we're in the middle of a shift, and this thing is just accelerating, and it's like a roller coaster. It's fun and scary all at the same time, right?
Sure. I have a client, and after our conversation earlier, it kind of dawned on me that he was struggling with. He's been in the e-commerce business. I mean, he's been in for a little while, but he finally opened it up to what we call the unwashed masses. The non accounts, and opened it up with people with a credit card, and he was looking for how do I get people to swim up to the boat, and he got really good at that. Very good with SEO work and whatnot. But then we started really talking about how he expands his category mix. How do you expand the products? And now, do I have to inventory those, or how am I going to? I'm going to explore beyond my current warehouse. And really, it dawned on me after our conversation. I'm like, well, why not work with a master distributor? Because as you said, you ship to people directly, put their label on it. It's like all of a sudden the light bulb went on for me. And I think that's something that as people kind of shift, move into this e-commerce world, something that's a little scary, a little different, that this is where you all can really provide an exceptional, backup there to do that.
Yeah. And let me just draw a distinction, because we kind of talk about e-commerce and digital interchangeably. And I think they're very different things, right? I think e-commerce is a very specific channel that involves you having a website that you have to maintain. You have to have syndicated refreshed content. You have to have real-time pricing and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
inventory levels and all those things, right? And it is a phenomenal way to do business. And it is a core channel that everybody's going to have going forward, because some percentage of your customers want to shop that way, and you should allow them to interact with you that way.
Yeah.
Digital, on the other hand, is the much bigger arena for me, especially in our world, in that we have to have our ERP talking to the ERP of the end user, and we have to be syndicating our catalog to them and making it super easy for them to procure everything they want to buy from us. And to me, it's just different skill sets, it's different requirements, it's different capabilities. They're both 100% relevant in our world and need to be part of it, but they're very distinctively different and require different talent and different needs.
Absolutely. And I think what's fascinating is they have to become educated in both sides. And I hate to say it, guys of our vintage are not probably going to be the drivers of this. There are going to be others that we have to step aside and say, okay, this is the way that the modern end user wants to interact with us, and we have to provide opportunities for that.
It's funny you say guys our age, and it's 100% true, but there's also some different demographics to this, right? Is like,
Sure.
my father, for example, is 85 years old. He was born in Clark County, Missouri, but my dad is a first mover. My dad was an Allstate insurance agent and had a Epson computer in his office that I could use in college. That's how long ago it was.
Wow.
That UPS program I talked to you about, I wrote it on his computer. It was just a macro, right? But again, I had access to things because my dad was the first mover. And so
yeah,
you and I, have digital tendencies that others don't, even in different age demographics. So there's,
right.
There's always the multi-tenant component to this, right? And so it's absolutely generational, right? The younger, they're natives to digital, where you and I are immigrants.
Right.
We have embraced it and we understand it strategically. And so we maybe have a different view than maybe some of our peers.
Absolutely. No, I think, and again, with your background, you spend a little time with Nextrend, and I've been around the digital world for a very long time, and it was something that was ingrained in me very early on. But you're right. So again, I think that maybe you and I have the ability to absorb some of this a little bit easier than perhaps others in our demographic or our age group. And I think, frankly, I think it's fascinating stuff. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. I've been spending some time around marketing people and learning about digital marketing. Fascinating. This is stuff that is only maybe 5 years old, 6 years old. But it's really interesting to see that type of advancement in how do we influence, how do we communicate with others. I mean, I think that's really kind of where it gets down to it.
We call it the digitization of the customer journey, and it is a hybrid, will continue to be a hybrid. And I think, at least as far as I can see, I think in our industry, there is a hybrid here in most cases of touch and digital. And so I think understanding how you can digitize that customer journey map for different people, right? Some people want a hybrid, but we have customers that set up their account online. They transact with us. We've never personally spoken with them, and they're great customers, right? And so I think you have to be agile and flexible to let that digital journey be what they want it to be, and be ready for the hybrid inputs for those that want it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. No, and that's, again, you're looking at you mentioned the future of the where you are in the channel and where you value. I do see the digital side versus the product versus the stuff. I see the digital side being much more relevant. I mean, and much more attractive to people versus what do you put on the shelf?
Well, I think if Amazon taught us anything, it's that a platform can be a strategy and it can be a strategic advantage, right? And if you look at our industry, our powerful value proposition has always been in the productivity, but the supply chain is a mess, right?
It is. It's a scary place. Yeah.
It's the most inefficient inventory model in all of distribution. If you look at it, almost $3 of inventory to generate $1 of revenue. Put that in juxtaposition to the office products, that's less than 80 cents, right? I mean, the gap is massive. And so again, we're going to get forced one way or the other. Either we're going to be outside looking in, or we're going to get on the train versus get hit by this train. But in addition to the having to up our game around productivity and interacting with the customer, our supply chain is going to have to get leaner because it just carries too much cost and efficiency in it today. And that's just not going to be acceptable in tomorrow's world. It's just not.
And Larry, and I know this is, kind of a little bit, it may be a difficult question to answer, is because the supply chain is in such a mess and people are so fearful of containers, am I going to get something? And really, where manufacturing has gone offshore into different places, there has been a trend of people looking domestically, looking more domestically. This reverse globalization, I guess, is another way to look at it. Is that something that you see? And frankly, does it kind of play into your hand?
Yeah, I think without question, let's go back to my comment about 2001, 2 million jobs, poof, went away.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think some number of those would have went away with productivity anyway. But I think we are seeing some reshoring for all the right reasons. And I think the reality is nobody cares if your supply chain is 90 days or 9 days, as long as it's the number, right? And the
Right.
problem today is people say 90 days and it's 360 days. And so we've lost trust in the supply chain.
Right.
And so anything longer has less credibility by human nature. And so I think bringing more domestic gives manufacturers more control. It certainly gives us a cleaner view of the supply chain. And so I think that is a good thing for the entirety of our industry. And I think it's good for us too, because product movement in the United States lets us participate in our channel. So I think it's a phenomenal thing for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a de-emphasis on unit cost and an emphasis really more on availability and can we keep the supply chain flowing? Because we see what happens when it stops. We've seen this and how incredibly painful it is when that comes to a grinding halt or, as you said, lack of trust, inability to trust. And if I guess I like that because I really hate the price. I've always hated, relying on that unit cost and that pricing, but the ability to serve. Well, if I don't have product, I can't serve. So
Well, yeah, and let's be fair. There's not an executive in the world that if someone says, "Hey, I can lower your unit cost by 20% and you can improve your financials," that isn't going to take that bet all day long. And
yeah,
but
yeah,
I think the reality is, if we look back over the last 20 years, right, since 9/11 and all the offshoring that happened, and what was the real cost of that? And I mean total cost, right? The freight,
yeah,
the time lag, the additional inventory
yes,
you got to carry to deal with their inefficiencies, the stop lines, the extra work that it's taken, unpacking a container versus taking a pallet with a broke truck off.
right,
When you look at the total cost, we probably put through a lot of stuff for very, very little savings, if any, in the end.
right, right. And I think that's something that people are waking up to at this point, and there's nothing like a little crisis to, wake people up and really examine the efficiency of that model.
Well, and I think we're in the middle of another manufacturing renaissance because of the shortage of supplies and people. And so robotics and automation is going to be at an all-time high, which again, if you look at our productivity rate of the United States for the manufacturing sector in juxtaposition to the Chinese, it's better than 10 to 1. The last time I looked at this, they had 100 million people making the same amount of goods that it took 10 million Americans to make. And I think that productivity advantage will continue. And that makes us the manufacturing leader in the world, not China. It doesn't matter who's got the biggest number. It matters how effective you can be at that. And that's a very envious position to be in.
So you're telling me I need to go invest in the Rust Belt. I need to go buy property in the Rust Belt. It's time to come back. So
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of that. I think we'll see a lot more.
I agree.
And I hope some of the things that led to manufacturers being frustrated, in terms of talent and labor and dealing with unions. And again, unions are there because someone had to have them to protect people.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be that way. My relationship with people at UPS when I was a supervisor was great because they were my friends and, we didn't have disagreements because we worked through it. And so it can be done. And hopefully having lost these jobs and took all this effort, but not got a lot out of it, hopefully everybody comes back and is like, hey, maybe if we just let's work together and collaborate. And, I've said this before, I think the next age is the age of collaboration, right? It is,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
do you work with? There got to be people you trust. They got to be people you can truly outsource components of your business to that can do it better than you. And you just don't have enough resources or frankly, the cachet to get all the talent you need under your roof. You just don't.
Right.
Even Amazon and Google can't pull that off. So how are we going to do it in industrial distribution, right?
That's right. Right. In the private side over here. No, I mean, pain begets change, and change begets, I believe, collaboration. I would agree. Absolutely, Larry. Well, Larry, hey, I really appreciate you going through this and talking about it. It's been a pleasure, man, catching up, talking about some of these different issues. I think we've actually kind of run the gambit here. We've kind of gone a little bit all over the place, but it's just been a pleasure to catch up.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I really appreciate the opportunity. I love this industry, and hopefully we all continue to make a difference. So there's a lot of people that can follow us and continue this journey.
All right. Well, again, take care. I look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Impostor Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.